the current direction everyone wants to go has to do with the same stimulus involved: drugs, beer, booze, sex, online dating, clothing, colors, letters and sentences. To make the consciousness in this scenario, in this world they're making now in Seattle, Washington, consciousness doesn't get made or created. Consciousness comes from this unspoken, undirected process in the body with the system of the brain. What the brain does: sends signals, receives signals from the body, makes decisions, has thoughts, and thinks. In the body with the ability to lift a finger for a behavior and crush the finger for a stimulus and a reward of an explosion. Now, the system and the processes involved with the brain and the body receive the information and the data from the world to not have any sort of emotional laughter included, any sort of extras. And the words being received, the images being processed, are described as culture, awareness, and a lot of other words. And with these parts, now, where does racism come from? The brain, the body. The brain's making decisions, the brain's thinking and having thought. The body. There's no other example to give. There's the brain, the body. So for example, the racism comes from consciousness in the world. Racism comes from the world. And the world has racism from poverty, suffering, violence, despair, abuse. And what's happening in the world doesn't involve indoctrination. people are making choices. And deciding what to do now. Indoctrinating the people who make choices and decide what to do does exactly what's being done in the world to cause a racist. Too many people, too many humans causing distraction, giving misinformation, and not giving the eyes a better vision and the ears a better input. I remember hearing this story about this blues singer, this African American man, this blues singer. He'd go over and he'd take these coats from these racist KKK members and he'd collect them. And he would totally change the way they think. And they would be excited. They'd have their consciousness totally cleared. And he accomplished his task with music. Love, positive emotions, and caring. What's being attempted now has to do with energy and a whole lot of intentional language. Instead of the easier, more relaxing and healthy recognition about where we are in outer space on an object, what we do on Earth now, how we do what we do on the planet now. Disregarding the old and the confusing parts. From when Sigmund Freud smoked cigars and Carl Jung made mysticism. And B.F. Skinner went about his day with some pigeons at Harvard. When people believed in a word called the mind, in the very exact same way as when people go to church and they say, God, Lord Jesus, people would say and still choose the mind. And a health practitioner, a doctor, says the brain, the amygdala, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, who have learned anatomy. And people like me, a mistake, cerebellum, cerebrum, they get tricky. But the prefrontal cortex, the brainstem, thalamus, hippocampus. Aren't some philosophy or ideology or a mystery being ignored now? They used to really believe in the old days we couldn't know who we are. The mind and the body problem. And then there started to be MRI machines, and then there started to be neurophilosophers trying to figure out how to describe what was being achieved now. And what's been achieved now, and why this discussion gets hard to explain, has to do with how much has been learned, how much has been achieved and accomplished. Allowing a person, a human, to look up at the sky and see the universe and recognize Earth, an object, a sphere floating in the universe. There's no drug experience to explain what I'm saying now. There would be no now up there. There would be light. There would be matter, black holes, supernovas. And we're allowed to drink coffee, wear aluminum foil hats, make a video for medical school on a device, and not have to memorize and practice the words and the speech to tell the professor or the doctor who's interviewing the applicant. Now, we get to drive a Porsche across and down the road in the desert and fly up there, not dying, and living in a space station floating up there. The information and the data are making this now non-existent and not apparent. To change the information, the data for the racist being described in this dialogue now. And the problem has to do with the dialogue. And the restrictiveness from the words, and the anger from the letters. Solving a problem from where they're behaving now. From where they're thinking emotionally